pretty insane pastor who also happens to be a rabid Trump supporter. His name's Mark Burns. He's running for a congressional seat in South Carolina and has decided that his issue, the issue that really matters for Americans according to him, is turning this country into a theocracy. He doesn't want a separation of church and state. He wants to ensure that the church is part of the state. Now, at the America First event in Florida last week, Mark Burns decided to outline his vision for America, saying, quote, "We need to replace God at the center of American politics. The separation between church and state was not designed to keep the church out of the government. No, it was. That's actually the point. It was designed to keep the government out of the church." So listen, the government is not supposed to, I know.
It's not to keep the chocolate out of the peanut butter, it's to keep the peanut butter out of the chocolate. Like they're together. You just described together. That's the thing that you described.
The government is not supposed to endorse any particular religion, having
no religious tests.
And by the way, okay, so which religion would it be, Mark Burns?
Anyone, I don't think he cares, just God. There are gods of many religions. I think he'd be fine with whichever one.
He'd be totally fine with Islam, right?
It's literally the same God. Head explodes.
Totally, of course. No, they want religious rule in America. And I think that that's been clear in, Mark Burns happens to be one of the, in my opinion, dummies in the way that he's going about it. Because what we've seen with the organizing, with the strategizing, with the policies that have passed in various red states, there is a strategy in place where the right wing is able to implement theocracy, like a theocratic element to our government.
Yeah,
they've succeeded. Mark Burns is just like, I don't agree with what the Constitution says. I don't want the separation of church.
Yeah, which that's what bothers me. It's just because as someone who loves the founders and thinks that they made no mistakes, couldn't make a mistake, they were divinely inspired. They were very clear about this, and so you're offending me as a lover of the Constitution. I'm kidding, of course. This is how the right loves to talk about the Constitution. They don't actually care. They'll overturn whole sections of it, doesn't matter. You are 100% right though. In Florida, they're effectively pushing every LGBTQ person, starting with the kids, back in the closet. They're outlawing abortion in multiple states. They're denying the existence of trans people. All of this based purely on a combination of their psychological and emotional weakness, but buttressed by their religious dogma. That's all it is, but they weren't dumb enough at least to say, it's because it's in the Bible. No, they say it's about my rights, or it's about parents' rights, or it's whatever. They're not savvy enough to not have some sort of fundamental problem with people just living their life, but they are savvy enough to hide why it is that they have that problem.
That's exactly right. Now, last month he spoke at the right-wing Reawaken America event, where he said that God was, quote, raising up armies to help conservatives shut down Democratic-led America. Let's watch.
God is raising up armies that we're going to start having civil disobedience in America. Y'all not talking back to me. Just like the Montgomery Improvement Association that led the boycott that Rosa Parks led, that shut down the busing system in Montgomery, Alabama. We are going to shut down this America that's led by the racist, liberal, race-baiting Democrats.
A lot of that sounded okay up until the end.
Well, let's address what he said at the end. Like, so what happens to those who are engaged in un-American activities? Jordan Ewell, we're looking at you. You got a tattoo that says it.
I know,
right?
I think he's first on that list.
By the way, you should support his fundraising effort. Check that out. We talked about it on the show.
Exactly. You can get that tattoo on Shop TYT, by the way.
That's right. A temporary version.
Temporary. We'll get the permanent one eventually.
I don't know about that. But this is what he said about those who are engaged in un-American activities. He explains it in the next video.
When I'm elected, I am going to help formulate and re-energize a committee called HUAC. HUAC is the House of Un-American Activities Committee. This is a committee. It is not a new committee. It was a committee that was during the time that existed in the 40s and the 50s, but it's a committee that is sole purpose is to identify Americans, media, elected officials who are doing un-American activities and to hold them for treason here in America.
No, he sounds great. He really does. I mean, as someone who really values freedom, separation of church and state, liberty, all of that, he sounds like the perfect person to represent the people of South Carolina.
He comes across as a person who watched like the first 5 minutes of a documentary, or like he read the first paragraph of the Wikipedia on the House Un-American Activities Committee and doesn't realize that's considered one of the darkest times in the last century in America. That's awful. Hey, here's a great little follow-up. Who gets to decide exactly what's an un-American activity? I understand you think it's gonna be all of you. Again, people love tyranny when they assume they'll be the tyrant. They love the idea of a boot crushing someone if they think their foot is gonna be in it. But I got news for you. You guys are actually having a lot of trouble winning Democratic elections. Would you like the Democrats who you consider liberal, racist race baiters to be determining who's un-American? I don't want them to either. By the way, like I said in his first video, I agree with a lot of what he said. If Christians of all different stripes want to participate in civil disobedience, they can, should, and do, by the way. They're some of the most politically active people in the country and they've done great things.
And it's protected under our Constitution.
Exactly, but you're not supposed to do that to then overturn the Constitution that protects the process that you just participated in.
Okay.
That's what you're not supposed to do.
So you're touching on something that has frustrated me about American politics for a long time now, which is you have these two sides, the two dominant sides, Democrats, Republicans, and one side claims to value our Constitution, our liberties, freedoms, all of that, while they single-handedly try to dismantle all of that.
Yep.
The other side is either asleep at the wheel or they refuse to engage in bad faith political maneuvers, which we see Republicans doing all the time. And I'm not saying I want them to do it. My point is, how do you have a sound debate when the two sides are just on completely different playing fields?
It's difficult.
And they have completely different ethics and values.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll give you I guess a comparison, right? So I'll agree to a debate with someone like Ben Shapiro because I at least know that Ben Shapiro he's deeply conservative. He genuinely believes what he's saying.
Yeah, he's awful.
I am not gonna get into a debate with I don't know, I think Charlie Kirk is probably a good example, or I remember Gavin McInnes or someone like that asked me to debate and I was like, no, because someone who's just not good faith and you can't.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson,
Exactly.
Yeah, he's awful, genuinely, but much of what he said he doesn't actually think about or care about.
I just think it's not the same as here are two sides. They're both acting in good faith. That's not what's happening in American politics right now. It hasn't happened in American politics for a long, long time where you have two sides that are acting in good faith.
Yeah, well, the difficulty is that we're not necessarily good at determining whether someone is acting in good faith, especially when the bad faith is designed to seduce us. And that's how it works. Charlie Kirk, whatever he's doing, he may not believe it, he may not be capable of believing some of the things that he says, but he does it for an audience that he knows wants it. They want that, they like being lied to, so they're not gonna analyze what he says through a critical lens. Same for Tucker Carlson. And there are versions of that, well, I'm not gonna say necessarily on the left, but they used to consider themselves on the left or whatever. When you target a message at people, it can be very seductive and it can bypass the defense mechanisms. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about media and political party as virus. It gets into the cell and then hijacks the cell's mechanisms to reproduce itself, to take over the body. That's what we're seeing. It's allowed technically, as long as they're not literally breaking the law. In many cases they are, and there's generally no consequences, but you're allowed to do these sorts of things. And I agree with you at the end of the day, I don't want a version of this on the other side. Which, by the way, does exist, not the left really, but when Keith Olbermann is talking about Tucker Carlson being sent to prison for the rest of his life, or The View is considering it, I don't want that either. I don't want people listening to him because he's entirely dishonest and dangerous. I don't want advertisers advertising on his show, but I don't want him to literally have his head cut off. And unfortunately, there are people who see the appeal of tyranny on all sides. It's not equal. They don't have equal representation in any way, and it's not helped by the fact that so many leaders on the Democratic side, while they're not interested in doing any of what you're identifying, what they're interested in doing is just sitting there and taking up space.
Yes.
As problems go unsolved, and that contributes to people believing, well, if democracy isn't the solution, then maybe something else is, and that something else can be really dark.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.